that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 384th edition of Energy Week. I'm going to try to keep this to an hour this time around because I want stations elsewhere in the country to be able to download it and predict what it's going to be. You've lost your space? Well, that's okay. I have things to say. Welcome to the 384th edition of Energy Week. Today is the 13th of August. We start a week ago today with news on energy and climate change. You can get the links to the original articles by going to geoharvey.com, and we will try to keep you apprised of the date of the article. It's not the actual date of the article; it's the date it appeared at the blog. And aside from that, you can go to the link that's provided at places like bctv.org and YouTube and so forth, and download the actual script, if you want to call it that Tom and I are working from. And I want to point out there's a reason why there's a line. There it is, right there, through my face. It's because there's a plexiglass shield there, which is designed to keep Tom and me separate so that we don't have to wear face masks. And, you know, if BCTV found out that we took that thing down, they would kick us out and never let us back again. You know. So anyway, we are
a bank teller here.
Huh?
I feel like a bank teller.
Well, you know, every time I see one of these, I go down to the co-op or something, and you know, one of the young ladies is checkout, or usually it's a young lady at checkout, and I feel like the end, one of the last scenes, or possibly the last scene in The Graduate, Dustin Hoffman is pounding on the door, yelling, "Eileen, Eileen!" I feel like doing that. Or it's Elaine. So we live in weird times. Anyway,
a little slot here for us to pass.
There is. It does feel like a bank teller's.
Hey George, you got a line through your face.
Well, that's okay. I don't mind. So, as long as nobody else minds, I don't mind. So you have something to say every time we do this, and why don't you say it?
Huh?
Why don't you say it? Some of these articles are actually worth reading.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
What Tom says.
Yeah, I always say that. I try to remember which ones are worth reading. And mention that as we go through, because some of these really have some
of them
good
are.
Stuff in
and
there.
Next week, I think I'm going to have another one that's going to be really interesting because I'm making a projection. You know, I write for Green Energy Times, but I also write for Clean Technica. And I'm just today going to send an article to Clean Technica talking about my view of how the end of oil and gas will come. And my view is,
come?
Yeah.
It's here already.
Well, it is. My view is a little different from most people's. Most people say as the time comes and it declines, it's going to get harder and harder and harder to get more decline in. And then what will happen is it'll taper off painfully, slowly, up to 2050 or 2060 or 2070. And the way I see it is it'll go down and it'll go down and it'll go down faster. And then all of a sudden it'll just go bang.
Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that.
And I explain why.
Good.
So, I mean, in terms that I think an economist would actually be able to understand and possibly agree with.
Well, we'll be touching base on stuff like that.
We will indeed.
By the way, I got to ask you a question.
What's that?
You write for Green Energy Times. Do you get paid by the word?
No. If I got paid by the word, I'd be the worst paid journalist in the world.
I read some of these articles, you know, and there's so much superfluous language in there. I swear these guys must be getting paid by the word.
In my articles?
No.
Oh,
some of the articles that we look at.
Oh, some of the articles that we look at, there's a lot of superfluous language.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, there is.
I say they must be getting paid by the word.
They might be, and there are places and people who do that more than others. This is very common in Indian journalism.
Is it? Yeah.
I don't think it's because they're paid by the word. I think they just love words. And so they want to use as many as they can. So anyway, I just wrote a novella, by the way, of which
Oh, did you?
probably half of the action takes place in India.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the
You've
novella.
never been to India, have you?
No, I've never been there, but it takes place in ancient India. So
okay.
I'm not going to be able to visit.
Not too many people.
But it's a novella about. The basic story is there's two guys on a porch in Nebraska in 1904. One is the owner of a hardware store where the porch is, and he's also the lay reader in the local Episcopal chapel. The other, his name is Gus, and the other one is named Justus, Justus, and he's an attorney, Yale educated, who started his education in Eastern religions. And they get into this discussion, and in the discussion, Gus, who has no particular education at all, and has never been out of Nebraska, tells Justus that he can explain things that Justus probably doesn't understand about the history of the lives of the Hindu god Vishnu. And so that's what it's about. Anyway, I have submitted that to a publisher, and if the publisher doesn't publish it, I'm going to do it on my own. And we start on, I'm sorry about that, everybody. We start on the 6th of August. If you go to geoharvey.com, you can click on the appropriate date on the calendar and get to this article. It's from Power Engineering Magazine.
Yes, it is.
Oh, and it has a picture. There it is. You want to put the picture up?
Where's the picture? There we go, by
There.
Jove. I think.
You got to go a little farther. There you go.
Ooh. Looks like a railroad train with an empty dish next to it.
Well, it's not entirely empty. If you look closely, there's a pair
There's a
of
cable in there already?
cables. It looks like two cables.
I can't tell that. But
There's an up cable.
over here. I'm looking at the computer, but here,
Yeah.
there's two cables in
It,
there.
it looks like there's an up cable and a down cable. Is that how DC works?
Generally,
Okay.
it doesn't have to. They can use the Earth as the return.
They can, but do they want to? I don't
More
know.
reliable if they do it this way.
I think it probably is. Okay, this is from Power Engineering Magazine. What do you got for a title?
Co-location of rail and power line. Well, that makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. I'm surprised it hasn't been
Oh,
being
they
done
could do
for a
they could
long
do
time.
They could do this with interstate highways too.
Absolutely.
You know, they could.
Absolutely.
All of this stuff can be solved. The developer of the SOO Green project, which might in fact be Sioux Green project,
Well, it is
it?
because it's the Sioux Line Railroad. Which
Ah, yes, of course, Sioux Line, Sault Ste. Marie.
misspelling of Sault Ste. Marie.
That's right. Gotcha. The developer of the Sioux Green project announced a solicitation to allocate. Don't you love words? Transmission capacity rights on a first of its kind project co-locating electric transmission underground with a railroad corridor running from Iowa to Illinois. And the next thing that's going to happen.
I looked at this up on the map.
Yeah, oh yeah. Elon Musk will come.
Yeah.
He'll have the boring company put something in that'll compete with this, and you'll have so many because those boring company holes are all
That's a
circular.
great big hole, yeah.
They could put cables overhead. They could put cables on the side. They've got all kinds of things they can do. So, what do you got for interesting stuff instead of listening to me chatter?
Well, this is a 350-mile-long corridor right
yeah.
here. It's 2 gigawatts.
2 gigawatts.
Bigawatts.
2
okay.
gigawatts.
And it's 525 kV.
So-
And that's pretty high for cables.
525 kilovolts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
this
it's
is-
not at the edge, but that's a significant cable.
That's a significant cable. There's one going up and there's one going down, but you can't get power in both directions. You got to choose one.
Yeah.
Okay, should we go on, Tom, or do you have
I
more?
think we can, yeah.
Okay, our
because-
next item is from Clean Technica, and there is no picture for this, so
Why not?
I don't know.
COVID-19 bankrupts 19 energy companies. Well, this is interesting. They're not the big energy companies
No,
that we
they're
all know
not.
and love.
But the thing that I found interesting about this was the stuff that came after the title. A total of 19 energy companies have filed for bankruptcy this year. these are not only the only recent ones in the United States industry. There are around 225 bankruptcy cases across the country in the energy sector that are still pending in federal bankruptcy courts as of the 31st of May.
This is interesting things that are happening.
Oh,
I mean, these people have overextended themselves, and the market drops, and they're going, holy cow, what do we do?
right. And one of the things that we will talk about next week is the fact that today in the news, it turns out that sales of coal in the United States have gone down 30% from what they were last year.
We're going to be talking about that, but we're not going to be talking about 30%.
No, we will talk about it, but it was 30%.
Wow.
And these are people who were suffering, and all of a sudden, they've lost 30% of their sales because of COVID-19 and other problems. So, you got more?
Well, it links markets from Iowa to Illinois. That's what they're doing here with the existing rail lines. The rail lines been there for a long time.
We're on the coal, I think, aren't we? COVID-19 bankruptcies?
We on that one already?
Yeah, we are.
COVID-19 bankrupts 19. Yes, I did. I said they're the small ones. But
Go ahead.
well, that's what I read it already. COVID-19
Okay.
bankrupts energy companies.
Yeah, okay. I thought maybe you had some comments on that.
Well, I do, but I'll let you read the article.
I thought I read it. I did. I read this.
Okay. Well, I got a couple of notes here. In the past spring, the U.S. has had its lowest energy consumption in 30 years,
Yeah,
affecting gas, oil, and coal.
yeah.
But the good news is there has been a corresponding decline in greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah. See, this whole thing of COVID-19,
Yeah.
it's a conspiracy by nature to aid Donald Trump in his true calling, which is as the chosen one. And the thing he was chosen to do was to punish the United States for its devotion to the worship of mammon. What can I say? This is really, really tough for for basically everybody, with certain clear exceptions. And the energy companies have just been suffering, but the energy companies that are suffering the most are the ones in fossil fuels, because even though renewable energy has been off with COVID-19, it's not off as anywhere near as much. But in the course of all of this stuff, big companies are signing contracts, and they can do that with COVID-19, and the contracts are going to renewable energy.
Well, we're going to be talking again about that a little bit more.
We will indeed. Should we go to the
nice
next
picture of a dolphin up here.
We have a picture of a dolphin.
Well, see if I can't get that picture up.
That is not a dolphin named Flipper, although he could be named Flipper. There you go.
I'm having a hard time moving that mouse.
The mouse?
It might be the contacts are dirty or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
Well, that's a bottlenose dolphin.
it sure is. And this is from CNN.
Toxic chemicals from burning fossil fuels poisons dolphins and whales. And there's a good short video in this article
Yes,
about dolphins and bioluminescence, and it's
that
short and
that
it's worth looking at.
bioluminescence thing.
Yeah.
I was stunned by that. I didn't know that there were. I knew about bioluminescence. I just didn't know that dolphins were involved. But I suppose they should be. After all,
Why not? Yeah.
They're disturbing the plankton.
Well, bioluminescence is not a function of the dolphins. They
It's-
just happen to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, and they're exciting it by going through the water.
But the short video shows you that. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
High levels of toxic chemicals have been found in stranded dolphins and whales along the coast of the southeastern United States, according to a study. Arsenic, mercury, and other chemicals from burning fossil fuels and mining are found in their bodies. And if you think about this, we have warnings from Vermont State Fish and Game, or whatever, the Agency of Natural Resources, not to eat too much fish from Vermont waters because of an accumulation of mercury.
Absolutely.
Well-
there's a pond. It's actually over in nearby New Hampshire.
Right.
But the highway's right there.
Yeah,
And a big sign, do not eat the fish from these waters.
right. And these dolphins and whales are eating stuff from the sea that have
That's
the
what
same
the story's
problem.
about.
But it's the only thing in their diet. Everything they eat is poison.
Well, I got a a takeaway about exactly that.
Yeah.
Dolphins eat a wide variety of fish, shrimp, jellyfish, and octopus.
Yeah.
When dolphins and whales eat fish with concentrations of the chemicals, the toxic elements enter their bodies.
Yeah.
Duh. And some of these same fish are also commonly eaten by humans.
Yes, but
So that's why they tell you don't eat fish from these waters.
But the dolphins, when you eat fish, you try to eat fish that are not high on the
Yeah.
on
Well, the article
nutrition.
goes into that, actually.
Yes, but these guys don't have a choice.
No.
That's what they have to eat. So even if you could explain to them how nasty human beings are, they'd still have a problem because they wouldn't have anything to go to. Okay, we're up to Friday, August 7th, and we've got an item from
Got another picture
Power
coming here, but I
Engineering
figure out
International and a picture
which one of these mice I'm using.
Yeah,
There we
you
go.
go. And a picture of floating offshore wind turbines, all
How do you know
arranged.
they're floating?
Well, because they have that funny triangle at the bottom.
Bingo. That's there for stability.
There
But
are,
yeah, this is a deep water.
there are other
they
ways
can't
to do
anchor
it.
these to the ground because the underwater ground is too far away.
That's right. You could put these things up anywhere in the ocean.
yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that because there's probably
Well,
places
you can put
where
it up in,
currents and
these are deeper waters.
yeah, they're for
Like off Japan,
off Japan, off the west coast.
off
Yeah.
our west coast.
Yeah.
Well, offshore wind will reach over 234 gigawatts by 2030.
And
That's an eightfold increase.
Well, that's also an impressive number. This is from Power Engineering International. Let me read this. Global offshore wind capacity will surge to over 234 gigawatts by 2030, from 29.1 gigawatts at the end of 2019. That's a surge of over 200 gigawatts.
Yeah, it is.
And these offshore wind turbines have a high capacity factor, so they are going to be like this would be like 150 large nuclear power plants, perhaps.
I didn't think of it that way, but you're probably right.
And let's see. This is led by exponential growth in the Asia-Pacific region. Of course, China gets everything. And continued strong growth in Europe, according to a report from Global Wind Energy Council. Why are we not doing this? Well, we've got people in Washington, D.C. who are dedicated to the idea that the market should straighten everything out, and they want to make sure that that favors whoever has got money in their, putting money into their campaign accounts.
Well, what did I see
Nasty.
I saw this blurb. How does it go? The only thing easier to buy than a gun is a politician.
Oh man, guns are not easy. I'll tell you, they are not easy. Yeah, there are loopholes in this thing of the direct sales from one individual to another and so forth was never tracked, although they are now, and in Vermont anyway. So, you got more on that one?
Well, 2019 was the best year on record for
Yep.
offshore wind globally. So the times they are changing.
Yes, they are. Should we go on?
Yeah, we got a picture coming
We
up
have a
again.
picture of a very interesting building, and this is from the MIT Technology Review.
Yeah, this mouse isn't following too well. I think the contacts are dirty.
Now, you should double click so I can be up there too.
Huh?
You should double click so I can be up there too. Okay.
Well, that's a picture of a green hydrogen plant.
Yes, it is. And you have a title for this article. I'm
Falling
sure.
solar costs have renewed clean hydrogen hopes.
The world is increasingly banking on green hydrogen fuel to fill up some of the critical missing pieces in the clean energy puzzle. For decades, researchers have been heralding a new hydrogen economy, but it's barely made a dent in fossil fuel demand so far. Now that might change.
Well, that came from the MIT Technology Review, and it's a good article.
Yes.
It's one of the ones I recommend if you got the chance.
And that's
read it. It's a
interesting.
long article.
Yeah. That's an interesting building in that picture.
I don't know anything about it other than you can see the solar panels.
But
Are they solar panels, or is that just
those are,
glass?
I think those are just glass. But nevertheless, you get an idea of the scale from the left side of it, where you can see that there's a garage door and it occupies half the height of the building. This is not a big building.
It's better for me to look at the picture up on than the picture on the computer.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, it's bigger.
Yes, but this is
that's just glass. You can see through it now.
This is not a very big building. And now, did I read the thing on this? I did. Basically, what this is saying is that excess energy the thing about wind power and solar power is you always overbuild. You build for the peak demand, so most of the time you're producing electricity that nobody is going to need.
Well, we'll deal with that. As we go today, we got a couple articles.
We do, but this article deals with that also, because what they're saying is that you can take that extra electricity and use it to make hydrogen.
Well, it's all trying to figure out how to store energy.
Right.
And hydrogen is one of the ways to store energy.
Yep.
As we've talked about on this show.
Yep.
And ammonia is another one.
Yep. Another thing that I keep seeing is articles about nuclear reactors and pairing hydrogen with nuclear reactors so that the nuclear reactors can run full blast all the time.
They don't like to go up and down.
They don't.
You like to set them running and just go back and
That's
observe.
Right. But if the grid has got too much electricity,
what do you do with it?
What do you do with it? Well, at a nuclear plant, you can reduce the amount going onto the grid by using the excess to make hydrogen.
Bingo.
Yeah. So
and basically that's what they're talking about.
That's what they're talking about.
Well, hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, could fuel our vehicles and power our electricity plants.
Yes.
Its only byproduct from cars and trucks is water.
Water.
Producing it by electrolysis requires a lot of electricity. That's basically what this article is all about.
Yes.
As the price of solar and wind power continues to decline, it becomes feasible. And locating green hydrogen facilities next to major wind farms can make the fuel cost competitive within 2 years.
Yeah. So, and there was a super interesting article that we will also be talking about next week about a car. If you can believe this, they said that one fill of its hydrogen tanks, this is a car with a fuel cell driving it, one fill up will take it 1,000 miles. 1,000 miles.
That's a pretty good drive. That's a pretty good range.
And the car itself is 1,000 horsepower.
I saw that. That seems wrong to me.
Well, this is what they're saying: 1,000 horsepower, and it'll do 0 to 60 in about 2 seconds.
That much I can believe, but 1,000 horsepower. I didn't know they made motors that big.
I told you the motor in my little Prius, which as I recall was like 50 horsepower or something like that, was about that big.
Yeah.
And I think of a 50 horsepower DC motor. You don't want to get under such a thing, because if it falls, you're going to be about 1/4 of an inch thick. Okay.
Well, let's take a look at the Yellowstone River, because we got a picture coming.
We do indeed. There's the picture, and if you just click on the mouse, you'll
go.
You don't want to double click and have me up at the same time? That's okay. Don't do it. Okay.
Well, let's take a look at the Yellowstone River there.
This is from Courthouse News Service. These places like Courthouse News Service occasionally have very interesting articles.
Well, a lawsuit challenges Trump's overhaul of the environmental review law. This is significant.
It is. A legal battle with far-reaching consequences for industry and ecosystems has kicked off with a federal lawsuit over the Trump administration's revamp of a long-standing law that requires extensive environmental reviews for road, industry, and building projects.
Well, the word there is long-standing. This has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And everybody's been living with it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this guy wants to throw it out the window.
Yeah.
Well, Trump says that environmental reviews create, quote, unnecessary regulatory delays. Operative word there is unnecessary. And plaintiffs say that the National Environmental Policy Act, which we've talked about here, NEPA, was never about making special interest richer.
Yes.
Until now.
Until now. which it is.
Well, we got a nice picture coming up here.
We have a picture of, this is one of the most interesting things I've seen.
Yeah, it is.
And we're
These are
up
all
to
robots.
we're up to August 8th, which is a Saturday, and this particular article, yes, it came from Clean Technica, and those are agricultural robots you're looking at.
Yeah, it's an interesting article because every one of them does a different job and has a different name.
Yeah.
Well, the article says a swarm of tiny robots could help eliminate pesticides.
Isn't that interesting?
These little things, instead of spraying poison at them, they capture them.
Or they, you know, with
Pick them up right out of the ground.
yeah, with the weeds, they're actually zapping the weeds with a tiny electrical
They're
charge.
electrocuting the weeds.
Yeah.
Well, a swarm of tiny robots could help eliminate pesticides. I think I said that.
You did indeed. It means that we could have better food. At least we could more easily have better food. I don't like the idea of eating food and knowing that there's poison in it.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
it's easier to forget that.
Well,
And there's poison in almost anything you buy in the supermarket.
Almost.
Unless you're buying
Almost.
organic.
yeah, and which is why I buy organic. It's actually the only place where I spend more money than other people, I think. But
Well, at least if nobody's cheating, you're getting a better product.
right. And by the way, we have an organic farmer in Vermont who is the candidate for the Democratic Party running for governor.
Yeah, what's his name? I want to say Epstein, but it's not.
No, it's Zuckerman.
Zuckerman. Yeah,
David Zuckerman. And the
Yeah,
last
I talked
time
to Zuckerman, he's a pretty good guy.
the last time I walked up to David Zuckerman, I held my hand out and said, "I'm George Harvey." And he laughed at me. He said, "George, I know who you are." It's one of the really beautiful things about Vermont is that, you know. Anyway, okay.
Did you read this one? You haven't read it yet. Swarm of. I read the title.
You read The Swarm of Tiny Robots. Imagine a future where of foods free of harmful chemicals, where crops still grow strong and dense in the absence of choking weeds, but bees and other pollinators buzz and frolic among the crops. At Clint Brower's, and I got to deal with my computer here. At Clint Brower's farm in Kansas, that future is very nearly a reality thanks to autonomous robots.
Well, Brewer wants to get the chemicals out of our food.
I don't blame him.
That's a pretty good idea.
If you look at a cornfield of conventional corn, it is a desert from an ecological point of view, and it's a toxic waste dump.
Well, nothing else will grow there after corn.
They do that on
Years.
purpose, and they do it with chemicals.
Yeah.
But those chemicals are there to kill things, and you know, so
And we eat them.
and we eat them. That's right.
Well, Brewer, I said he wants to get the chemicals out of our food.
Yeah.
He's the co-founder of Greenfield Robotics, which has nothing whatsoever to do with Greenfield, Massachusetts.
No, it doesn't. But there's lots of green fields.
They make the robots.
Yeah.
And this is interesting because each robot has its own name.
Yep.
And the article says Tom, Dick, Harry, and Wilma. And also has its own job. And the article explains that.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item is from Offshore Oil and Gas
we got a picture
Magazine.
coming up here too.
And there is,
The picture came up.
you know, there it is. This is what Offshore Oil and Gas Magazine is putting into its pages.
Well, those are tidal turbines, and they're going to be placed in the East River. That bridge is called the Whitestone Bridge.
Yeah.
And this is a tidal energy project. I guess it's a pilot plant project. It's a good idea.
I think it probably is.
They're
Yeah.
going to put these things in the river and leave them there. And that river has a tremendous current. And it moves in different directions depending upon whether the tide is coming in or
Right.
going out.
That's the whole
So
idea.
these things are going to be making,
When the tide is
whenever
coming
the
in,
tide is changing, which
Yeah.
is what, 4 times a day? 2 up, 2 out.
is it 2 up, 2 out? I guess you're right.
Yeah. So those things
so
are going to
when-
be generating a pretty good amount of power.
Yes,
At
they
least
will.
have that potential.
And at the time when the direction of the tide is changing, they will not be producing.
Right.
But the huge advantage of this is that the people who operate the grid are going to know what time to that they are going to need more energy.
Well, it's like a clock. I mean,
It's just like it's like a clock. It's not exactly like a clock because the time of the tides changes on a day-to-day basis.
but that's all well known.
It's all well known. We know what the tides are going to be like 100 years from now,
Oh, absolutely.
unless something weird happens.
Which could happen.
Yeah, which could happen. Okay,
Well, as it says, it's a tidal energy project in New York,
Yep.
and you're going to read about
Right.
that.
Verdant Power is moving ahead on installation of 3 fifth-generation tidal power turbines on its first tri-frame mount. That's the tri-frame mount at its Roosevelt Island Tidal Energy project site in the East River in New York City. The turbines have been mounted in preparation to move it to the site. Now, those turbines on that triangular mount are going to be put onto onto a
barge
of some sort that'll take it to the place where it's going to be put on the bottom of the East River.
Well, Roosevelt Island is right about in the middle of Manhattan.
Yeah,
It's off the shore, and it's in the middle of that river.
yeah,
So there's 2 channels, one on each side, that they
Right.
could put these things in.
yep. They're going to have to make sure that nobody runs a ship over them that could, has enough draft to get
Well,
tangled.
the water's not very shallow there, so I don't think that's likely
okay.
to happen.
Okay.
Ships don't go much in that channel anyhow, because there's no reason for them to be there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
all the ports and all that are further down in Manhattan and in Brooklyn.
Okay. We have an item from Clean Technica and a picture of it. And I want
And
to
it's
know
coming up there, yep.
what you think of my take on that picture, Tom. You know what that looks like to me?
A flying saucer.
Well, that was the first thing that came to mind. And then I said, no, it doesn't look like a flying saucer. It looks too attached to be a flying saucer. Okay, what does it look like? And then I realized it looks like a gigantic stainless steel barnacle.
I never thought that. Well,
Doesn't
that's an
it?
urban airport,
Yeah,
and the picture comes to us from Hyundai.
yeah.
And the article says urban air mobility infrastructure in the UK. So that picture is in UK.
Right.
And you can see from the size of the cars and a few people in that picture. That's a pretty big structure.
That's pretty substantial, and it looks to me like what they're doing is they're planning on landing these urban mobility aircraft on the roof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this urban mobility aircraft is sort of like a funny looking helicopter.
Let me read the blurb here. Hyundai Air Mobility and Urban Airport teamed up to, quote, explore new purpose-built, multifunctional, and scalable infrastructure for urban air mobility. Again, lots of really good words. Hyundai plans to invest $1.2 billion over the next 5 years to develop an air vehicle and the broader urban air mobility ecosystem.
They're working on a whole system, really.
They
here.
are
And
indeed.
This is the future. I mean,
Well, I wonder about it because, we're not think about all those cars
Yeah.
on the freeway
yeah.
and then put all those people into individualized urban mobility vehicles. You're going to have the air above them. It's just going to be
It's
stuffed.
going to be saturated.
That's right. There may be a way to do that, but it makes my head
Well, from the article,
boil.
Urban Airport's current design has a 60% smaller footprint than a traditional heliport.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
It includes passenger and cargo processing and amenities and vehicle charging and maintenance facilities, and it's ultra compact.
Okay.
So they know what they're doing there.
Yep. We have an item here from The Guardian, which is
We got an interesting
we're
picture.
up to Sunday, August 9th, and we have a picture. And that is an old picture. It goes back to 1925. Those fellows in that picture are probably all long since departed.
Oh, sure. Look at the coal all over these guys.
Yeah, some more than others. Okay, what do you got for title, Tom?
English coal, well, the title is English Coal Miners circa 1925. So
Well,
just
that's
said
the
that.
title of the picture. What about
Is this the end for King Coal in Britain?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting historical article.
Yes.
If you got the time, it's worth reading.
Yeah. According to figures released last week, A mere 8 million tons of coal were incinerated in UK factories and power plants last year. 8 million tons sounds like a lot, but that is roughly the same amount that was burned nationally in 1769.
Which isn't all that long ago.
Well, but that was before
The steam engine.
the steam engine. That was when James Watt patented the modified steam engine.
Yep.
And it has been an extraordinary transformation. Coal was what made Britain great. And
Yes,
they've
it
just
certainly
about
did.
completely abandoned it.
Well, annual coal use in Britain soared to well over 200 million tons by the 20th century.
200 million compared to the current, or last year's 8 million.
Absolutely.
That's a
It provided Britain with enormous power,
Yep.
but at an exorbitant cost in terms of pollution and the diseases that emerged from its wake.
right.
Today, renewable energy plants provide 37% of UK's electricity.
I can remember the pea soup fogs.
Oh,
that they
yeah.
had. They were terrible. And thousands of people died.
People were dying.
You know, in London, thousands of people would die over the course of a week because of air pollution.
Well, these renewable energy plants have provided the final blow to coal burning in
Yeah,
UK
that's
after 250 years.
Yeah,
So the times they are changing.
they are indeed. Okay, our next item, let's see,
And we got another
has
picture
another
here.
picture. It's solar trackers.
Hard to see.
Hard to see because they are so reflective, and you know
Well, if you look really carefully, you can see what those things are, but they're reflecting the clouds.
they're reflecting.
So most of that picture, about half of that picture, is the solar tracker, even
Yeah.
though it looks like
Yeah.
sky.
Okay, this is from not the Guardian. It's from Clean Technica.
How to address global warming in a responsible manner.
3 years after publishing Drawdown, and Drawdown is an absolutely amazing book. If you want to get, I gave a copy of it to my granddaughter, and she was
So
absolutely.
Drawdown is a book. I'm
It's
trying to
a
figure
book.
that out.
Yeah, it's a book, and it's got like 100 different things that you can do to draw carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
All right.
And some of these things are just so practical.
Well,
3 years after,
it'd be a good idea to Google that Drawdown review because the article tells you a lot about it.
yes, and you know, these Drawdown is available in libraries, and you can get it online. You can get it used. You know,
Well, the article, this is interesting. The article says it's too complex and detailed to compress into a short article.
it sure is.
It's packed with graphs, charts, and footnotes, and we urge you to read it for yourself.
Yes.
So it's them urging it, not me, but I think it's a good idea.
Let me read this, Tom.
All right.
3 years after publishing Drawdown, Project Drawdown published Drawdown Review,
Which is a different thing.
It's a different book, which suggests humanity can manage the climate crisis effectively using only the tools available today. Of course, that assumes that we start acting like responsible adults.
Yes,
And
we
you
do.
know, for any child who's watching this show, yes, there's a lot of adults out there who don't act like responsible adults. Anyway, that's my rant for today.
Well, I've got the 10 findings that they call to action. I guess we got time to read a quick
I don't
summary
think
of
so,
it.
Tom. We've got 21 minutes left, and we've got 10 items to do.
I'll pass then.
Okay. So we've got another article from Clean Technica that does not have a picture.
Argonne National Lab breakthrough turns carbon dioxide into ethanol. This is significant.
This is significant, yes. According to ANL, this is Argonne National Laboratories. Its researchers working with partners at the Northern Illinois University have discovered an electrocatalyst that converts carbon dioxide and water into ethanol with a very high energy efficiency, high selectivity for the desired final product, and low cost. And
Well, ethanol is the principal active ingredient found in alcoholic drinks.
right,
Okay, it's widely used in the chemical, pharmaceutical, and cosmetics
very
industries.
widely.
So this new process converts carbon dioxide from industrial processes such as industrial power plants,
Now
fuel power plants.
we've had ways to make methanol.
But now they got a way to make ethanol.
Methanol is wood alcohol, and you can go
Can't drink
blind
that.
from that. Even just the fumes of methanol,
Can get you, huh?
they can get you. And you know, I had a friend when I was young who was a toxicologist, and what he said was methanol does irreversible damage in microscopic amounts. Any exposure to it will do damage to your eyes.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Microscopic amounts.
Yeah, if you
Wow.
just have fumes and you
Yeah.
breathe. He said he was worried at that time about methanol being added as an additive to
The
gasoline.
gasoline.
And, was not pleased that it was ethanol that they went with, because he wasn't pleased about the whole internal combustion thing. But he was certainly felt better about the ethanol going in than if it had been methanol, because
Well,
he
that
said
makes sense.
any unburned methanol from the
You're going to
plant,
be breathing it in every time you're in your car.
any unburned methanol that came from the car in front of you was going to damage your
eyes.
well, it's actually it's the
Optic nerve,
optic
yeah.
nerve. Yeah. Okay, we're up to Monday, August
There's a
10th,
picture of a fishing boat.
and I love pictures of fishing boats. I have ever since I was 3,
Well, let's get it up, see if we can
and
get
this
it
is
up
from
there.
Science Codex,
That's an interesting little fishing boat,
isn't it?
And there's a couple of seagulls in that picture.
Just to prove that it's real.
How
Okay.
fish stocks will change in warming seas.
This is kind of depressing, I think. A study conducted at the UK, in the UK highlights the future effects of climate change on important fish stocks for the southwest UK fisheries. The study suggests changes that could have important implications for fisheries management and for the future fish diets of the British public.
Well, projections suggest increases in the abundance of warm-adapted species, which it lists, okay,
Yes.
I'm not going to repeat it,
Yes.
and decreases in the abundance of cold-adapted species.
Yeah,
And British consumers may need to adapt their diets.
they will have to if we're not going to stop the ocean warming up.
We're going to be changing the fish we eat.
But you know what they have in the UK, and they have it in other places, in New Zealand and Australia.
Funny places where they speak English.
Well, also, this happens to be true in Spain, but there's a different term for it. They have a thing called white bait.
What is it?
White bait.
White bait.
Yeah, which is neither white nor bait. But, that's how the English language works. And what it is the young, about, so long, an inch and a half maybe, between an inch and 2 inches, the young of edible species. So, for example, young salmon would work if you had a superabundance of them. And what you do is you take these things and after they have been murdered, euthanized, you might batter dip them and deep fry them or something. And the people in the UK just love these things. And they
What
can
are
be
they called?
white bait.
White bait.
Yeah.
So if you go to a restaurant and order white bait. Okay.
If you ask for white bait, they'll either give you white bait or tell you they don't have any.
Yeah.
But they're not so likely as they are in this country to say, "What are you talking about?" But people
I don't
love
think
this
I ever
stuff.
heard of that before.
And the reason I mention this is because white bait, if you think about, for example, golden shiners, which are minnows,
Yeah.
you could use those when they're an inch and a half long,
Yeah.
for white bait.
Okay.
And a female golden shiner, when she lays eggs, lays about 2,000 of them. And in that first period, when these little teeny fish that are, they look like, if you look at them in a microscope, they look like hairs with two little eyeballs on one end. And if you let
think I've
those,
seen that.
they grow incredibly fast. They'll multiply their size by 10 in the first week.
No kidding.
They're eating things that you can't even see.
Yeah.
And so if you had it set up, you could probably, using aquaculture, produce a lot of white bait. Anyway, we should probably go on.
Let's move on. Trump pledged to bring back coal. He didn't.
I'm laughing because the people who supported Donald Trump were talking about Obama's war on coal, and Obama didn't declare war on coal. That was done by the oil and gas industry. And this is from the Roanoke Times. Trump first promised, by the way, has coal miners for readers. This is in the
It
Appalachian.
comes from Appalachia.
Yeah.
Right.
Trump promised to bring the coal industry back in 2016, but coal has not come back under Trump. It's continued to decline. In 2016, the U.S. had 48,900 coal mining jobs. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, the same agency says there are only 43,800 left. So it went from 48,900 to 43,800.
Well, this is a quote from our industrious leader. We're going to put the miners back to work.
Yeah,
And
but
another
doing
quote
something
is,
other than mining.
We're going to bring back King Coal.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But
You're gonna
he
make a
could never
statue
do
of
what
it.
he was telling them. He never could do what he was telling them he
And
would.
you know what? They were put out of business by the oil and gas industry. And if you look at the price of stock for ExxonMobil,
Yeah.
the day Donald Trump was inaugurated and today, it's down 50%.
This is down 50.
Yeah. This is, I mean, Donald Trump had no idea what making America great again actually meant.
Well, he rolled back environmental regulations, yet coal is still going down.
Yeah.
The war on coal is now being waged by the free market.
Yes.
Other forms of energy are cheaper.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. Okay, we've got an item from Clean Technica, and we've got
a picture here.
a picture of solar panels
Yeah,
in a
let's see if I can
mountainous
get-
area.
Get the picture up. I gotta stop double clicking that thing. So there it is. It's up anyhow.
Yep.
Solar panels. And what it says here is solar for coal swaps could turbocharge clean energy revolution.
U.S. coal power plants have been retiring at an average of 10 gigawatts per year. That is not nearly quick enough to avoid trouble. The Energy Innovation has identified 179 gigawatts of coal plants that cannot compete on a cost basis with solar. And it focused on 22.5 gigawatts of these, saying you could close those plants down, forget natural gas, go straight to solar.
Well, that seems to be happening.
Yeah.
And in this case, they're talking about identifying 22.5 gigawatts. They're publicly owned nonprofits,
Yes.
okay, that they're working with. They answer to their communities, not to shareholders. So it's a different ballgame for them. So, what is it, EI? That's Energy Innovation. I never heard of those guys.
Well,
But their Solar for Coal program brings in third-party private capital to relieve the utility from the upfront costs of disentangling from fossil fuel contracts. So these third party lines up replacement power sources. So I have a note here, EI is an energy and environmental policy firm.
right.
I had never heard of them. So.
I hadn't either. We're up to Tuesday, August 11th, and
Right.
we have a scene of an explosion.
Let's see if I
This
can
is
get
from
this
Forbes.
picture.
I got a number of articles from Forbes this week. This was an explosion in Baltimore. It was a gas
It
explosion.
just happened recently.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're talking about it.
A major gas explosion in Baltimore has killed one person, injured seven. Well, it's killed two now.
Yeah, a major gas explosion destroyed 3 homes in northwest Baltimore, killing a woman and critically injuring 7 people, as at least 3 dozen firefighters continue to search for people buried in the rubble and debris.
But
According-
as of when this was written, the cause of the explosion is unknown.
Well, it's considered to be a natural gas explosion.
It is, well, they call it a gas explosion.
Yeah,
And the only kind of gas floating around is natural gas.
right.
Something like that happened. But they looked at the gas lines and they were intact.
The gas lines could be intact, but there's so many different reasons why gas could explode. And one of them is if your pilot light goes out and your house is closed and the burner is left on, your kitchen is gradually going to fill with natural gas. And when that happens, if there's another pilot light on, or if the phone rings in some cases or something like that, that gas can explode if it's at the right amount in the atmosphere.
They had something like that happen in Harlem not too many years ago.
This is something that happens
Yeah, it
regularly.
was a very large explosion, and it was due to natural gas.
I had a friend who was coming home with his father from an outdoor movie, and all of a sudden cinder blocks started falling out of the sky.
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's hard to dodge them.
Wow.
Yeah, and the reason was because natural gas built up in a chemical plant that was not in operation, and the plant exploded. And the interesting thing was there was only one person in the plant, who was the guard, and he had become kind of overcome by the natural gas and had laid down on a bench in the locker room, and he was there when it exploded, but he wasn't hurt. I don't know. Anyway, we've got to keep going, Tom.
Yeah, let's move on.
We do.
A picture of a truck, a Nikola truck.
A Nikola truck. There is a Nikola truck, and this is a really impressive article. It's from Clean Technica.
It is very interesting. Yep. Nikola books an order for 2,500 electric refuse trucks. Well, what's the difference between a refuse truck and a garbage truck?
They're the same thing. Come on. Okay, what's the difference between a refuse truck and a garbage truck? Maybe it's because a garbage truck is going to go to a landfill, but a refuse truck is going to go to recycling. I don't know.
Something like that.
I don't think there is a difference. As Nikola's first, and Nikola is the name of a company, as Nikola's first factory is going up in Arizona, it announced that it had signed an agreement with Phoenix-based Republic Services, which is the second biggest refuse collector in the United States. It had signed a contract for 2,500 zero-emissions all-electric refuse trucks, with possibly another 2,500 coming in the future.
That's a significant order.
Well, it is. The thing that I actually looked at several different articles about this, and one of them said the standard truck that they were replacing with this costs about $500,000. So this order is probably over $1 billion. And they have
the article does say that Nikola specializes in Class 8 trucks, which is the largest Class 8 trucks.
Yeah.
And they expect to produce 35,000 electric trucks in a year.
And they're
That's a lot of trucks.
And they're going to cost upwards of $500,000 each. That's a lot of money. This is a very big business that they're trying to grow.
And this is the part of it I had trouble understanding. The trucks will be electronically limited to 1,000 horsepower. I think that's pretty high. I never heard of a 1,000 horsepower engine in a car or a truck.
I don't know. I just don't know.
I mean, a big car engine, big V8 is the biggest one I think I've ever heard of is 650.
But you know what, Tom?
Yeah.
1,000 horsepower DC a motor going into a car would weigh less than a 600 horsepower gasoline engine. But on top of that, it would be far more efficient in getting that power to the road.
Yes, it would.
So, if you don't mind...
These particular trucks are particularly a good use of this because these trucks make hundreds of stops and starts a day.
Yeah.
And during that period of time, normally with a diesel truck, it's idling all the time.
Yep.
But here they just shut it off.
Okay, we are up to an item from Forbes.
Nice picture here.
It's a very interesting picture, except I don't like it. And I'll tell you why. It's because that's an American flag and it's upside down, which is a
distress signal.
Distress signal. That's right. So, what do you have for a title?
Well, they don't all come out that way.
No,
they come out white.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's called Icewind Freya turbine, and it says new 6-bladed vertical axis wind turbines can power your off-grid home for 30 years.
Safely.
Safely, oh yeah.
That's right. The Icelandic renewable energy company Icewind is now launching its innovative 6-blade wind-powered turbines for use in the United States. The new Freya model from Icewind, which starts at $3,200. This is not a terribly expensive
No, it isn't.
Is an entirely different design.
Well, we'll look at that thing, and there's two sets of blades in there.
Yeah.
The one with the American flag on it's the inner blade.
Right.
And that's for low velocity wind.
Yep.
And then the other things you see sticking there, they're also blades.
But
and
they're
for the higher velocity.
And they
this thing will take winds up to 130 miles an hour.
But what will it do with those winds? Okay.
Well, these vertical axis, one of the beauties of vertical axis wind turbines is they can take wind from any direction.
Yeah.
They don't have to turn.
They don't have to turn, and they can take turbulence, which is a real nightmare for the regular horizontal shaft wind turbines. And on top of that, no bird in its right mind is going to fly into that thing.
Well, the article says they're completely safe for birds.
Yeah, and they're going to be quiet. And, you've got lots and lots of reasons why this is...
Well, you're going to need 2 or 3 of these to power a typical home.
And they will work in Iceland. Okay.
Iceland isn't really as cold as you want to think.
I know that, but it's not the environment we're in. It's a rougher environment than the one.
It's a little bit chillier than Vermont.
Okay, we've got
Not
an
much,
item
though. This is an interesting picture.
from. Yes, it is.
Let's get the picture up.
We have an item from the Guardian.
Nanotechnology turns bricks into batteries. Now that brick there is lighting that light.
The light is wired to a brick. Oh
We
man!
wired to 3 of them actually.
Nanotechnology, a new technology, explores the porous nature of fired red bricks by filling the pores with tiny nanofibers of a conductive plastic that can store energy. The first bricks store enough energy to light small lights. The bricks are supercapacitors. In other words, they're micro supercapacitors.
Yeah.
That operate without a change in chemistry. And so,
That's the difference between a capacitor and a battery.
yeah, and capacitors are just amazing.
And they can charge and discharge very quickly.
They can. That's a problem. Or it is a problem unless you figure out a way
Well,
to
they
deal
don't
with
want
it.
it to discharge too quick.
Huh?
They don't want it to discharge too
No,
quick.
they don't. And you have to find a way to discharge
slow
it
down.
slowly.
Yep.
And
Which
in
isn't
fact,
easy.
I'm writing another article about that.
Good.
Which is what they call Isle of Ho, which is an island in Portland Harbor in Maine, is becoming self-sufficient in electricity, and they are using a pair of big supercapacitors instead of batteries.
Are they really?
Yeah, and
That's interesting.
new technology coming.
I guess it is.
Okay, we should go on.
These things can be recycled 10,000 times before their capacity falls significantly. That's these things there.
Some of these things, they're talking about 100,000 discharges.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy. Okay, our next item is from Sour Energy.
It is that. Renewables in 2020 will be the fastest growing source of electricity in the U.S. Well, if you're looking at this show a lot, this does not come as a surprise.
No, it doesn't. In 2020, the fastest growing U.S. source of electric generation will be renewables. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has forecast. It expects the power sector to add 23.2 gigawatts of new wind capacity and 12.9 gigawatts of utility-scale solar capacity this year.
Well, the Energy Administration forecasts a 3.6% less electricity consumption in the United States in 2020.
Yeah,
Now, part of that's because of COVID,
yeah, that's right.
okay? Renewables will rise from 17% in 2019 to 20% in 2020. Doesn't sound like much, but it is.
It'll be more than either nuclear or coal.
And further increase to 22% in 2021.
Yes. Okay,
Result of additions to the wind and solar generating capacity.
we are up to our last item.
This is the last item?
We have a picture of a wind farm,
Yeah, I'm going to try and get
and
that.
this is from Renews.
It says it's a wind farm. Looks
Yep.
like that to me. Corporate clean power demand is outstripping the supply.
The demand among corporates worldwide for renewable electricity is exceeding the supply, according to analysis by Bloomberg NEF. The shortfall in RE 100 clean electricity demand, that's an organization of big businesses that have committed to renewable energy, is now projected to reach 224 terawatt hours in 2030, up
Well,
from
you heard me saying that gigawatt's a bigawatt.
and a
A
terawatt.
terawatt's bigger than that.
Yeah, 1,000.
By
times
1,000.
bigger. Yeah. So
Well,
this,
COVID-19 poses the biggest challenge to growth throughout the rest of this year.
yeah, but it's doing some very strange things. Anyway, Tom, we're at our
Got 37 seconds
Yeah,
left. Let's
and-
talk quick.
yeah. We don't really know what COVID-19 is going to do to the energy situation, but it looks like it's going to benefit in the long run renewable energy.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I don't see how it can't do
Okay,
that.
I want to put the last little slide up that is wishing everybody a good week. And it says, have a resoundingly successful week.
That'd be a good idea.
Wouldn't it? Why don't you put us up and we'll say goodbye?
Here we go. By Jove.
By
I
Jove.
think he's fine.
I think he does.
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
everybody.
Come back next time.